I wanted to talk about the new one-click deploy to Hasura Cloud feature. It got launched pretty recently. The idea behind this was to enable users to quickly try out sample apps on cloud. Right now, prior to this, you have to clone a sample schema, apply some CLI tooling around that, deploy the schema to an endpoint, right? So it had multiple steps involved to get to a final app that you can try out with a query and whatnot. Right, so this will enable users to quickly try out existing apps that are on GitHub, which just complies to a CLI project on Hasura, and you'll be able to quickly try it out, right? So I'm going to show you a demo of the Slack clone backend, which is part of our Learn course series, right? This is, again, familiar directory structure, right? This is a Hasura CLI project, which has some metadata migrations, the config.yaml and whatnot, right? There are a couple more files which we'll come back to, but then this is, again, pretty standard CLI project structure. And we just going to deploy this GitHub project onto Hasura Cloud, right? So I'm going to click on this button on the Hasura Cloud, which just, if you look at the URL parameter, it would have taken a GitHub repo, right? The repo of the sample app and the Hasura directory structure, right? So, and once you click on the deploy to Hasura Cloud, it creates a project in the background, right? And then it clones the assets from GitHub, it clones the sample project, right? Now, this project requires a Postgres DB to be deployed. So you can connect an existing DB, or you can connect a new DB. And you can also look at the environment variables that are required or are already preset for this app, right? For this particular one, there's an unauthorized role that's being configured already. So this is coming up here. And if you have any other manual input that needs to be done for other ones, that'll also come up here, right? For this one, the database is pending. So I'll click the create database button. This will quickly sync with my Neon connection, Neon DB. There'll be a Neon DB that will be created in the background. And I can see that it's been created successfully. I'm going to set up these environment variables in the background for the migrations and metadata to proceed. So this will be like a schema plus metadata, right? So if you have permission set up in the metadata, everything will be applied here. Permissions, relationships, any kind of actions that you have, the remote schema configurations that you have in the CLI project, everything will be applied here. So you don't need to go through the CLI route to try it out. Right. So now the project has been deployed. The migration metadata have been applied, right? So you can look at this project already where the schema is applied. We have a sample query popping up on the GraphQL interface, right? So let's try out a mutation, insert user. And you can see that a user is inserted, right? So this is just schema. The users table in the Slack schema, and you're just inserting a couple of details here to get in a row. Now let's try to fetch this user, right? And again, simple query, getting back the schema of the user, ID, name, and created timestamp and whatnot, right? And if you look at the Explorer, you get the entire schema of the Slack clone because the tables have been created and everything is applied. So you can try out all of the other queries as well. Heading to the data tab, you can see the database connection to the Postgres Neon DB setup, right? So you'll be able to look at the tables here, the ones that we just inserted, the users, and whatnot, right? So everything would have been configured, metadata, everything is configured. So now this workflow could be applied for any of your existing GitHub repos which have a CLI project updated, and it's just a matter of creating a URL parameter which takes you to Hasura Cloud, right? And for those of you who want to quickly explore different kinds of examples pretty quickly, we've created this Hasura Hub, where you can now browse around some examples on different themes. This could be full-fledged database schema, so it could be a remote schema or actions, REST API transforms, event transforms and whatnot, right? So you could probably try out an Airtable transform where you will have a REST API in Airtable, which can be transformed to a GraphQL. The metadata for that has already been written for a couple of sample APIs. and you can try it out on Hasura Cloud by deploying it, right? Obviously, you need the API key and token from Airtable and whatnot for this. But then once you have the token, the deployment will be pretty simple, and the metadata would be applied pretty seamlessly, right? So everything will be pretty quick and seamless for you to try it out. And the best part about this is that it works with your existing CLI structure on GitHub. So the next step for creators would be that, hey, you have a project running on GitHub, most likely because you are in production, you have a migration metadata setup, and you want to expose that project to like the outside world, like a starter kit or a sample app that people want to try out. You can just quickly add a button, a Hasura Cloud deploy button, following the instructions in docs. Pretty simple to add the button, right? And also to form the URL structure, it's just adding a GitHub repo link and the directory structure of Hasura and whatnot, right? So a couple of changes to the URL, and you can embed a button which would just let you deploy these apps pretty quickly and try it out, enhancing the experience of trying out Hasura.